Hello and welcome to the WIHS Journal Public Affairs program. I'm Jerry Williams. Well, join me now for part 2 of my coverage of the Family Institute of Connecticut's 15th annual Standing in the Gap banquet that took place at the Stamford Marriott. We pick up where Executive Director Peter Wolfgang is speaking. Happening now on the WIHS Journal, it's news and public affairs.
This year, they wanted to remove the penalties for people that actually push you or coerce you into committing assisted suicide. We were able to stop that bill. They had fake safeguards in the bill this year in Connecticut, the same so-called safeguards that they were trying to remove elsewhere here in New England, such as residency requirements. We were able to point out these inconsistencies, the hypocrisies of our opponents, and for the 10th year in a row, we stopped assisted suicide. We stopped 3 bills in the state of Connecticut that would have expanded abortion. There was a resolution to put abortion right into our state constitution. Purple states, even some red states, are passing this amendment. We stopped it here in Connecticut. It comes up every year. We'll keep fighting it. But right now in 2023, late-term abortionists cannot take advantage of women in difficult situations because we stopped that amendment. We stopped an abortion tourism bill in the state of Connecticut. This would have spent $2 million of your taxpayer funds to fly women from pro-life states into the state of Connecticut on your dime to give them abortions and then fly them back. This bill would have subsidized human trafficking. The folks in this building behind me were not very happy when I told them that, but it's true. I drove here in the middle of a snowstorm to testify against that bill. I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad that all of you joined us, heeded our call to contact your state legislators and stop that bill. Finally, on the life issues, we also stopped a provide abortion pills or else bill. There was a press conference that was held here in March where they tried to push this bill, all the pro-abortion groups. We showed up at that press conference. This is the value of the Family Institute of Connecticut. We were able to give instant analysis to the news media and to the public at large. We were able to provide other facts that you were not going to hear from the other side, and that bill died quickly. Boy, the other side was not happy with us when we stepped on their press and ended that quickly. On religious liberty and free speech, we are in uncharted territory in the United States of America. We are facing things that we thought we would never see in this country. Our speaker at our annual banquet this year was greeted with an FBI SWAT team in his home early one morning while making breakfast for his family because he's pro-life. It was essentially revenge for the overturning of Roe versus Wade by our federal government. We are facing similar things here in the state of Connecticut. The very day that we had the Connecticut March for Life, there was a bill being heard at the state capitol that would have made it easier to do to pro-lifers what was done to the man I just mentioned, Mark Houck. It would have made it easier to sue pro-lifers, for instance, at the 40 Days for Life, if someone going into an abortion clinic felt that they had been prevented in some way, that someone stood in their way or something on their way into the clinic. It would have made it easier to sue you and also to prosecute you. That bill was being heard at the very same time that we were all out here at the March for Life. As soon as the March for Life was over, I went inside that building, I testified against that bill, and that provision was taken out of the bill. The March for Life, by the way, was much bigger than last year. So many of you turned out. I'm so grateful. You can tell that our movement is growing, and I think that's why we're seeing bigger attacks on religious liberty. But again, we were there and we stopped those attacks. The people inside that building know that. They know that FIC is one of the watchmen on the wall. That's why there was even a bill declaring us a hate group and attacking our status. We were able to defeat that bill as well. There is so much more work to do. With your donations, Family Institute of Connecticut will soon be putting a pro-life billboard right outside Planned Parenthood in West Hartford during the 40 Days for Life. We'll continue having online conferences for parental rights and for other issues. And Family Institute of Connecticut will continue to stand up for the biblical and scientific truth about gender and sexuality here behind enemy lines in the state of Connecticut, no matter how unpopular it might be. But as you can see from all the victories that we've had this year, there are people who stand with us. The truth may be more popular than we think, even in the state of Connecticut. These are the things we can do with your donations. We've had more victories this year than we have ever had in any other single year in the entire history of the Family Institute of Connecticut, in part because we're doing more than we've ever done. We've had more resources in recent years, thanks to all of you. We've hired more staff so that we can accomplish these things. We need to hire more staff still in order to have what we intend to be our most ambitious pro-life, pro-family year ahead in 2024. I want to thank all of you for everything you've done to make this possible, not just in 2023, but all the way back to the beginnings of the Family Institute of Connecticut. When I first became executive director 16 years ago, I had no idea that I would be able to stand here all these years later and be able to tell you about all these victories that we've had. Now, of course, the overall culture has grown darker during those 16 years, but the Family Institute of Connecticut continues to be a light, pointing to the one true light that we serve here in the state of Connecticut. It's thanks to all of you that we're able to do it. It's thanks to you that we're able to have the victories that we do. And I believe that with your help, we can someday have a Connecticut where God is honored, religious freedom flourishes, families are protected, and life is cherished. We can do it because of you. We can hold the line because of you, and someday we can turn the tide because of you. Thank you for your support for the Family Institute of Connecticut, and I hope you will continue to support us. God bless you.
So what's this all about? Why do we do this? Well, I think I just mentioned it with that last part when I spoke about children, when I spoke about my grandchild. That's why we do this. We do this for them. We want a Connecticut. Well, you heard it in the video where God is honored and so forth. But look, why? Why do we want that? Because Connecticut is where we live and work and worship. Connecticut is where we raise our children and our grandchildren. And we want to leave for them a Connecticut that is a blessing and not a curse to them and to generations yet unborn. That's why we fight. That's why we do this. That's why all of you are here today, for which I cannot thank you enough. You know, listening to Mark Hout's speech about 25 years ago, around the turn of the millennium, you remember this. Whatever faith community you belong to, the apocalyptic novels were all the rage. Remember this? There was the Left Behind series. For many of us, for me, I enjoyed reading the novels of like Michael D. O'Brien and, Bud McFarlane Jr., and they had this like apocalyptic end-world thing going on. And the stories that they told in these novels are like the story that Mark Hout actually just lived through. We're here. We're here. This is what we've arrived at. And what does this have to do with the appeal this evening? Well, only this. When you heard Jerry talk about the history, when we talked about Archbishop Bailey and all the work we did 20 years ago, fighting for the traditional definition of marriage, if I had gone into the state capitol 20 years ago and told them, if you change the definition of marriage, someday we're going to have drag queens reading to toddlers in the public library. Someday we're going to have schools that think they can secretly transition your children from one sex to the other and keep it a secret from you parents because your children belong to you, to the state, and not to you. I mean, I would have been laughed out of the building. People would have told me I was crazy. I didn't even think of it 20 years ago. But this is where we are. This is the moment that we've arrived at. To deny biology, psychology, common sense, and our very understanding, a biblical understanding of reality. Our state government chooses to displace the holy and natural order of sex, the family, parents, and the bond between them and their children. It is an assault by our Attorney General, by our government, on the foundation of reality. This cannot stand, and praise God, a court in California and some other courts across the country are starting to see it our way. But this is the beginning of a long fight. fight.
And you just heard sound clips from Peter Wolfgang speaking at the Family Institute of Connecticut's 15th annual Standing in the Gap banquet that took place at the Stamford Marriott. The opinions expressed are those of the participants, not necessarily of those of the staff or management of the station. If you'd like more information about what you heard today, call WIHS 860-346-1049, 860-346-1049. I'm Jerry Williams for the WIHS Journal. It's news and public affairs.